All right, good evening, everyone. Good evening. Oh, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Call and response. Dr. Collier, I'm sure familiar with that. All right, well, welcome to the regular meeting of the Kansas City Public School Board of Directors for November 16th. We'll call this meeting to order. June, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Abarca? Oh, I thought he was here.
Mr. Abarca, are you online? There he goes.
Present.
Thank you. Ms. Buckner? Here. Ms. Cortez? Here. Ms. Ford? Here. Dr. Jones? Ms. Wolfsey?
Here.
Mr. Hogan?
Here. All right, June, will you also call the roll for the approval of the absence of board members not in attendance? Dr. Marvia Jones is on a plane right now traveling.
I don't need to call.
We don't need to call a roll for that. Okay, all right. And the agenda is approved by acclamation, and we will move right into a review of the outstanding action items. June.
Thank you. There are 6 of the 7 outstanding action items have been responded to. The 7th one will be coming out in this week's Friday update, so you will be receiving that. And if anyone wants to see those updates, those are available on Assembly in the under the Documents tab. You will see Friday update, and you'll be able to see everything that has been sent to the board. And these include the responses from the staff. Thank you.
And just a quick reminder to the board, and administration as we're presenting and interacting with each other. We've got a large Spanish-speaking crowd in attendance, so we'll try to speak a little bit more slowly and add some additional pauses as well. And we also have folks in in our Westport room, in the overflow room, so we just want to be sensitive to that. And with that being said, we will move right into public comment. And just as a quick reminder, you can sign up for public comment up until the day of public comment. If you're going to email June Kolkmeier at jkolkmeier@kcpublicschools.org. You can do that up until 3:15 the day of, or you can sign up the day of up to 6:15. And if we have open slots, there will be a sign-up sheet out front. There's 10 maximum per board meeting. You're allowed 3 minutes to speak. We don't engage with folks during the public comment phase. However, if you want to interact with the district, get questions answered, et cetera, you can go to our website at kcpublicschools.org and click on Let's Talk and ask your question there. So with that being said, I'll call Leah Spencer to the podium. Welcome, Ms. Spencer. You'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, board and people attending. My name is Talia Spencer. I am currently a KCPS student at Lincoln College Prep, but I am a formal student at Central High School. The Board of Education, I have been found in KCPS district since 8th grade, going to Central High School since a freshman year. I played sports and amazing programs like band. Band was directed by Mr. Fisher, who is still there and who has personally funded his programs and has even personally gave me a saxophone that I kept throughout the whole entire year until it was finished. Sports programs like wrestling and football with Coach Patel, who makes sure his students get tutoring, who makes sure they get academics, who personally makes sure those students can do laundry, that do not have ways to go home from practice and to practice to make sure they get there, who mentors these students and helps them during conflicts and makes sure these students know that they are more than themselves, even beyond school. With people who are also like Coach Jefferson, who is our track coach. He has led our track team to state multiple times, but you don't ever see that in the news. Sometimes you will see schools like Lincoln in the news with their football team, but when Central sports or academics or just extracurriculars do something, you don't ever see them have that type of shine. We have a swim coach, used to be swim coach, who is Coach Lee, who was an Olympic track star, who was an alumni from Central High School. We have multiple students who have graduated from Central, who have gotten full rides to colleges, who have done it with from the academics and their peers, and from also their teachers and the resources they have gave them. Being on a team at a specialty school, you are just not another person, but you are like a family. The reason why the board wants to keep Central open is for the amenities like the pool and the indoor track, but those students are so much more than just the amenities there, and they deserve to be able to stay in their school and feel safe there. While you guys will not let us go to other places like Southeast, while you guys fear that we will have violence against each other, but you guys also want to send us to school together but won't trust us at football games together, I don't understand that. Kansas Central used to have one of the best debate teams in DKC, but you guys don't see that anymore because they don't have a debate coach because it never got replaced. What was up with that? From being a student who used to live on 33rd near Prospect, I would be able to walk to Central. Now living in downtown Kansas City away from Lincoln, that's a 45-minute bus or walk. Someone who personally rides the metro every single day to get to school and back to events like this, what about the other students who can't make it out here? What about the students who will have to miss a whole entire day of school just because they can't get the bus? We already have a bus shortage in Kansas City, so how are you going to deal with all those students getting back and forth? We have people like Manny Arbarca who ran for legislative and won, but wants to shut down Northeast High School, which is in the heart of our Latina community on Independence Avenue. I don't understand that. Why are you shutting down these students who are minorities and sending them to other schools while Central's demographics are getting lower? Lincoln's demographics are getting lower every single year while you're sending our minority students into pushing them out. I don't understand that. You guys are saying
Thank you,
you're not...
Ms. Spencer. Your time's
Thank
up.
you.
Appreciate it. All right, we're going to move on to Mr. Larry Cooper. Mr. Cooper, can you come to the podium?
All right, Dr. Collier, members of the board, thank you for allowing us to speak here today. My name is Larry Cooper. I represent the Northeast High School Alumni Association. I am also a committee member for Mattie Rhodes Center. I proudly attended Northeast High School and graduated in 2016. I am one of the many success stories from Northeast. A lot of people think that just because Northeast is in the ghetto, not a lot of people can come from there and be successful, but I am one of those proofs. Speaking on the Alumni Association, since the 1990s, we have given over $500,000 of scholarships to our students. I know Central has an alumni association, but I don't think any other alumni association is as active or as involved in their students than we are. So we are disappointed to hear that you want to close our school, considering we give back more than anyone else does to our students. Our food pantry supplies over 100 families, which are primarily minorities. And again, closing that would mean those families don't get those foods. We are against closing any schools in Northeast. I attended James Elementary. It is one of the most successful GPA performing elementary schools. And over half of those students walk to their schools, and we want to bus those students to different schools, which, by the way, you have not provided how much that will cost to bus those students to different schools. The culture of the Northeast neighborhood, as you can tell, we're primarily Hispanic, but we also have a lot of Muslim and other African American students in our community over there. Quite simply, if you close our schools, you will have shown the Northeast community that you would rather build elsewhere, invest elsewhere, than take care of the students in our community. These efforts that you guys are doing to re-up and change our school district will not bring back the students that have left us to suburban schools. I know that is one of your goals, but they are not coming back to this district, no matter how hard you try. And in closing with speaking on James Elementary, I know the buildings are old. Northeast was built to stand for 500 years. We're 109 years into its standing. It has done many wonderful things. We have a brand new football field that the Kansas City Chiefs bought us in 2017, and now all of a sudden we just want to get rid of Northeast High School. We ask that you guys take the time and realize that you should delay the vote, that it is not time yet to vote. We ask that you wait for a permanent superintendent and a permanent school board. And again, Again, like the young lady said before me, I am extremely disappointed that Manny is willing to close any of the schools in his neighborhood that he represents. Thank you.
Hey, guys in the back of the AV, we're still getting feedback from the mics.
And I can see no one.
Yeah. Mr. Cooper, thank you. Just a quick note for the crowd. Do me a favor, like I'm totally fine with everyone applauding, but save it to the end of the public comment for each person so that you're respectful of the person that's commenting. We, believe it or not, we actually do listen and want to hear from folks. So please just save it till the end and then applaud if you feel the need to do so at the end of each public comment. We would appreciate that. All right, we'll call Mr. Greg Lombardi to the podium. Good evening, Mr. Lombardi.
Good evening.
Thank you for coming. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I'm Greg Lombardi. I'm the Executive Director of the Likens Neighborhood Association, proud home of Whittier Elementary School. I'm here on behalf of the 4,000 residents in Likens, asking you, strongly urging you to keep Whittier open. You're hearing lots of comments tonight about flaws with Blueprint 2030, and I have a couple of flaws I want to talk with you about specifically in regard to Whittier. First, if you look at the statistics on Whittier, and these are school district statistics, thank you. Whittier is in one of the lowest income neighborhoods in the whole city. 62% of our children speak a language other than English at home. There are more than 15 languages spoken in Whittier, and yet the school has some of the highest academic performance in the whole district. We're at 82.1% APR compared to 67.8% APR on the average for the school district. James Elementary is the exact same way, where it's a real neighborhood serving school and it's at 85% APR. It doesn't make sense to close schools that are your highest academic performing schools in really challenged environments. Another thing that's a serious flaw is the statistics that the school district is using as a basis to close the school. They're telling us that there's this trend downward in enrollment. And they've given us this chart, which shows a trend downward as of the start of the school year. But this is not the most recent data. As of today, there are 375 students in Whittier Elementary School. The school is at 93% capacity, is on track to be at 100% capacity by the end of the school year. Again, it just doesn't make sense to close down a school that is performing so well and will be at 100% capacity. If a school needs to be closed down in the Northeast, and this is just my personal opinion, Garfield Elementary is one of the lowest performing schools in the district at 45% APR. That's more than 35% below both Whittier and James. The school district could mothball Garfield, and when the bond passes, instead of using $20 million to build a new school that nobody needs, you could remodel Garfield and turn it into an excellent school for maybe $8 million. So save lots of money. Don't ship the kids all around to different schools back and forth. Preserve the best schools that you've got in the system. So listen to us, please, and work with us. And we together can come up with a great plan to make our schools better without damaging the students and without damaging the neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardi. And we'll keep it moving and call Kate Bersati. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Ms. Bersati, welcome.
Welcome. Thank
You'll
you.
have 3 minutes.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is Kate Bersati. I serve currently as president of the Columbus Park Community Council. Columbus Park used to have neighborhood schools. Since the 80s, that has not been the case. While it may have seemed to be the right decision at the time, families have continued to leave. Today, few choose to move in. Rising housing costs have worsened this pattern, as has competition with suburban schools. Overall, Columbus Park is no longer a neighborhood that raises children. To be blunt, we have more dogs than kids. It should not be this way. I envy my neighbors to the east. They have the daily rhythm that children in schools create. Their parks are lively. The Northeast remains affordable and accessible to families. Closing schools may be an injury they never recover from. The Northeast needs support. The greatest vote of confidence comes from keeping, not closing, these schools. Please delay this decision until a new superintendent can lead us forward. I know what it's like to live in a neighborhood that has little hope of attracting families. We don't have enough to offer. The Northeast still does. If you close these schools, you are making a generational change. Families will not adapt. They will leave. Please delay this decision. Give the Northeast the chance that Columbus Park has lost. Let them renew their schools, and please let them keep their kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Barsati. All right, we'll call Ms. Rebecca Wampler or Wampler? Wampler. Welcome, Ms. Wampler. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, KCPS and our esteemed board. My name is Rebecca Wampler, and I've been honored to work for the district, specifically at Whittier Elementary, for the past 9 years. I want to acknowledge that KCPS made a fair move by seeking outside aid in determining the next best steps for the district. It is good to look at history and see where injustices made a deeper wedge between the community and the district. I won't spend my time tonight discussing how our building is performing well. No, I don't need to tell you that even with over 60% of our population being ELLs, we still hold firm in our numbers. I want to delve into the deep pool of what it means to establish rapport and relationships among staff, students, and our community. When I came to this district, I had a 10-month-old baby on my hip and a handful of garage sale items to set up my classroom. The faculty and the families of Whittier helped me get it ready for my 34 students. They tended to my child while I hung bulletin boards and sharpened pencils. Then came the students. They changed me. They taught me languages and phrases so we could help one another. We shared meals and stories. When students changed grades, the teachers here sit down, discuss strategies that work, details about the children's personalities so we can better welcome our students into our new classroom. We've become a community who grows stronger no matter the differences or the difficulties. This is about looking out for our families we serve in the best and most efficient ways possible. As a district, we constantly push the phrase, do what's best for students. We do our best. We do our absolute best to keep students at the center of every topic, so let's do that. We have 15 languages spoken currently at Whittier. We have 4 ELL teachers. We have 4 ELL paras and a bilingual liaison to help serve our population. If Whittier were to close, there would be a geographically large hole in which our families would be without their central familiar home base for school. During a parent-teacher conferences, we were able to partner with the Likens Neighborhood Resource Center for a family who needed items for their household. That's because we were both walking minutes within distance for them. The same day, Ruth Alleman, a senior at at Lincoln Prep, a former student of my very first class at Whittier, approached me with the biggest hug. Immediately, she said, "Miss Wampler, they can't close Whittier. It's like a second home to me." Examining the demographic map containing the median incomes and the potential closures, with the school closing, there will be created a massive gap between the opportunities of education to our lower income families. To me, it looks like a strategic plan to force a certain demographic out. Whether they grew up in KCMO or arrived here seeking a better life, Whittier needs to remain consistent for them. What is best for these families? What is best if their child falls ill and they need to pick them up, but they don't have the transportation to arrive at one of the 4 different schools we've been divided into? Maybe my words fall flat. Maybe they won't mean anything, but I will never forgive myself if I do not speak up. There will always be an alternative solution, but we have to do the hard work in finding it. I ask the board that Whittier's story not stop here. Please, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wampler. Ms. Christine Shuck. Sorry if it's Shook.
It's Shuck.
Shuck, welcome. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Christine Shuck. I'm an author, an artist, and a business owner in Kansas City. I've been here for 10 years. We moved here on purpose from the suburbs. I was raised with private schools. I was taught that public schools had no worth and that anyone that attended one was disadvantaged. When I moved here, the schools were unaccredited, and I thought, that's it. We're going to just stick with homeschooling, and that's that. Things changed, and I became the caretaker for my father in 2016, and my daughter entered 5th grade at Whittier. What happened next was an amazing surprise. I found a team of teachers dedicated to my daughter's future. And to this day, 5 years later, I'm friends with 2 of her teachers, her homeroom teacher, her science teacher that provided amazing service for her and just educational care and loving. I've become a foster mother and adoptive mother of 2. My youngest daughter is in 1st grade and she is in Whittier. And I thought, well, maybe just for this year. And as things went on, and I realized she has friends in the neighborhood, and I watched them play, and I'm half a block away from the school, and I see all these kids getting together, and I realize Whittier is the heart of our community, of our little neighborhood. And if you take away Whittier, you're taking away this heart. And what is left? I'm reminded of my favorite science fiction author. My brain just stopped working. I'll think of him in a minute. He went to high school at one of the high schools that shut down. And it's after it shut down, it burned and it burned and it burned and finally just tore it down. Beautiful piece of architecture, piece of history. I'd hoped to put my daughter all the way through 6th grade at Whittier. I had hoped to put my 14-month-old son all the way through Whittier, and I still hope to do that. I hope you allow us that opportunity to see that happen. We have a great team at Whittier. We have great academics, and I don't care what the school looks like. I care about the people that are inside it, and you can't take that team, break it up, and hope for it to repeat itself somewhere else. It's good right where it's at. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Shuck. We'll call Ms. Alicia Kennedy to the podium. Welcome, Ms. Kennedy. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the board and executive staff. I am excited to be here tonight to address you all about Blueprint 2030. But first, I'd like to acknowledge Rebecca Wampler. Thank you so much for your compelling testimony today, and all the other people who came out tonight on this very cold evening, Central alumni, Northeast alumni, and others, to express their concern about this community plan. As Dr. Collier mentioned, this is a recommendation, and I'd like to point out a few things about the data that has been provided that I'd like to bring to your attention. Number one, I believe this district has to decide who are its customers and how to serve them more effectively. I understand that the goal of Blueprint 2030 is to accomplish that end, but what all we've been hearing about are the buildings, and the people here tonight are concerned about the families. I work at Neighborhood Legal Support as an attorney, and we represent the Lycus neighborhood, where Whittier School is located. We've worked extensively over the last 3 years on focused community development to rehab houses, to provide affordable housing, to remove blight, to bring families back into the community, and one of those assets is Whittier Elementary School. There was no discussion in the last 3 years with that neighborhood about this plan or the possibility of taking away its schools. Millions of dollars have been invested in this community, and you're proposing to take away a strong community asset without any involved discussion. You hear tonight about the ELL families, you hear about the refugee families and the immigrant families that not only use this building for education, but as a community resource center, and it's become a hub of information. But when we look at the district, who does the district represent? 57% African American, approximately 30% Hispanic, and then 10% white families. But when we look at the map of who's being impacted disproportionately, it continues to be Black and brown families. It's like a mindset of we'll ask for forgiveness instead of permission. I've served as a policymaker, elected official, and we have never gone into financially established, politically and civically astute neighborhoods and taken anything away from them without real engagement. Never. I've not seen it happen at the city, the county, and I'm hoping that we don't see it here at KCPS. We saw this in 2010 where 30 schools were closed, and we lost accreditation immediately following that. We just gained accreditation earlier this year. You guys haven't even had a chance to put on an effective campaign to promote that, to engage more students, and you're already presenting a plan to concede you're going to lose them. But guess what? You close these schools in Northeast, there are charters that are going to take them. GCI will take them. Escuela Nueva will take them. But you know why? Because they're prepared to serve Latino families. KCPS has not done that effectively, including not engaging them around this plan. You have families here today represented by Rev Ed and others that are saying, we had no idea. No one talked to us. Even the interpreters at the meetings did not even effectively translate in a way they could understand it. It was whitewashed to them. That is offensive. And so, yes, I'm an African-American woman, and I'm advocating for these families because I'm always going to advocate for disempowered, disenfranchised, and communities that are being overlooked. And this is not okay. You look at the data you provide, you're saying we have to make sure we put
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Your time is up.
Your plan shows that Northeast has 24% of the students.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy.
And
your
the
time
seats
is up.
align with that, and we want a plan that reflects it in Northeast. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to Ms. Kelly Allen. Kelly Allen. Good evening, Ms. Allen. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Kelly Allen. I am a Northeast resident and work for the Likens neighborhood where Whittier is located. I'd like to spend a little bit of time tonight on hope and pride. This district is fully accredited for the first time since 2011, and that makes me feel hopeful, and it makes me feel proud. These kids and educators pulled that off during a traumatic pandemic, and that makes me feel hopeful and proud. I have faith that this is just the beginning of what good educators and committed students can do if they continue on this path. I want us to let pride and hope steer the ship for these kids while we make big decisions that will impact our city for decades. And I want to see this board treat this district like it is uniquely positioned to educate these kids, because it is. Instead of building on the achievements of these schools, Blueprint 2030 implementation is just going to be the death blow to neighborhood schools in this city. It'll just be over. Schools that are walkable, rooted in a sense of place, community, and legacy will be a thing of the past. And that goes for the schools on the South Side and the Northeast. These charters can market themselves however they want, but they cannot boast that they are neighborhood schools. That's us. That's KCPS. When I read this plan, I feel like you're handing the kids over to charters without putting up a fight. And Alicia just said it. I don't understand why we're not ambitiously marketing our new accreditation to get kids back in these seats and using the neighborhoods to partner with you to get kids back in those seats. Community, sense of place, neighborhood identity, these things matter. In the Northeast, you are proposing to close half of our remaining schools. We are painfully aware of what will happen next. We had 10 schools in 2009. We will have 3 left in 2024 if you follow through with this plan. Of the schools that closed during right sizing, 1 remains standing, Scarrett Elementary, it is vacant. The other 3 burned, several burned multiple times, and then were demolished. How can we back up this plan when the past and present show us that you guys don't protect these assets? They're right in the middle of our neighborhoods. I have hopes that our kids can continue to advance their achievement. I do not have hope that closing buildings and letting them sit in the middle of our communities and deteriorate or burn is the way to get there. Northeast neighborhoods will feel a grave impact if these schools close. Your presentation boasts that you reached out and engaged neighborhood groups. I have run the Lycans neighborhood agenda for 3 years. We had every single meeting. We Zoomed. We did not miss one. Nobody heard from you on the front end of this. And not one Northeast neighborhood that I've talked to, and I don't know if there's neighborhood representatives from the Southeast, but let me know if you heard from them on the front end. Nobody heard one word about school closures until a few weeks ago. And then we come to these meetings, and you justify this saying you've been working on it for 3 years, but you have not been working with us. Partner with us. We are your assets. We really want to dream and scheme ways to get these kids back in these seats because we're poised to do it right now. Thank you for your time. Please don't close these schools. It is not a prideful, hopeful move for any of us.
Thank you, Ms. Allen. We'll call Mr. Edgar Palacios to the podium. Mr. Palacios, you're familiar with this routine. Welcome. You'll have 3 minutes.
I'll try not to break protocol. Good evening, buenas tardes. My name is Edgar Palacios, and among the many hats that I wear, I live in the Independence Plaza neighborhood of the historic Northeast. 2 of our neighborhood elementary schools, James and Whittier, are on the proposed list to be closed. Northeast is a vibrant, diverse community with a strong immigrant population. In the Northeast, immigrant families would be the hardest hit by the closure of schools. 62% of students at James are limited English proficient, while 50% of students at Whittier are limited English proficient. 47 of the combined James and Whittier student population are Hispanic Latino. As the district moves forward, I am concerned about the voices that are not being heard. Voices like Dalia Hernandez at James Elementary, who has organized an incredible group of parents committed to keeping James Elementary open. Language accessibility remains a considerable challenge in the sharing of information and the receiving of feedback. The information being shared is complicated, nuanced, and not easily translatable. How do we ensure that those most impacted by the potential closures have access to the best information? As the demographics continue to shift in our community, we must work together to ensure that our community has equity and voice. Otherwise, our neighbors will remain disenfranchised. The district reminds us that these are proposed recommendations, not the final ones. Can we create additional opportunities for every neighbor in the Northeast community to share their concerns and hopes for the quality of education that our kids deserve? Para los padres que están escuchando y alertas, les suplico que continúen participando en ese proceso. No bajen la guardia. Nuestros hijos y sus compañeros merecen la mejor educación posible y esto no se puede ocurrir sin la presencia de sus voces como familias y su acción como comunidad. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Palacios. And to round us out tonight for public comment, I'll invite Mr. Christopher Steinauer. Welcome, Mr. Steinauer. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you to the board for allowing me to share my thoughts. My name is Chris Steinauer, and I'm the iSpark teacher at Whittier Elementary. As somebody who both teaches and lives in the Whittier neighborhood, I'm disappointed in the district already and concerned about the future of my community should you decide to close our neighborhood schools. Whittier is on the chopping block, and yet when you asked for community feedback, you revealed yourself as totally unconcerned. Our well-funded district decided to cut corners and translate the Blueprint 2030 survey into only one other language, Spanish. Do all of our families speak Spanish or English? Where was the Swahili, Burmese, Pashto, Somali, or Arabic? Where is the equity? Where is the inclusion? You threaten to close our neighborhood schools and start the process by closing the avenues we can use to speak. The Blueprint 2030 survey shows a lack of care in another obvious way. Someone paid twice as much as me, created a survey wherein families select between multiple choice options for what excites them, but the constructive feedback is an open-ended short response. As a teacher, I know how to scaffold. Perhaps the survey creator should spend time in my classroom or any classroom in Whittier where I use scaffolding to help my students share what they know and feel with me. If this were not so serious already, I would die laughing. You wanted pats on the back and didn't care to hear what concerns we have. How narcissistic is our leadership? Let me speak too on my safety concerns. This doesn't happen in Brookside, South Plaza, Hyde Park, or Briarcliff, but in the Northeast, our unhoused go to abandoned buildings for shelter in the cold. Every winter, buildings here ignite in flames. Am I right? Yes. Killing the desperate people inside who just wanted to be warm. The question I have is obvious. What will happen to Whittier? What will happen to Northeast? What will happen to James? What will happen to Central? What will the district say when it has blood on its hands? Will you all offer thoughts and prayers, and will they only be in English and Spanish? Finally, the district has shown time and time again that it is great at offering promises of a bright future without follow-through. Consider, if you will, the 2016 master plan. Our classes were supposed to shrink. Our walking distances were supposed to shrink. Instead, our kids walk for longer distances in extreme weather to enter rooms crammed with their peers. Is this equitable? No. How can I honestly believe the promises of a better experience for our students when it's documented that you lied? Do not close Whittier. Invest in us. Invest in our community. You are responsible for the $6.5 million in repairs we need. You never cared before, and as you threaten to close our buildings, you say now it's because you care. This is abuse. This is manipulation. I leave you again with this question. How narcissistic are you?
All right, thank you, Mr. Steinauer. All right, Dr. Collier, with public comment wrapping up, we'll turn it over to you for the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you. Good evening, board, community, staff that are present. This evening, we're going to start off with a video highlight. The highlight this evening will be our CTE program. As we were doing our Blueprint 2030 engagement, we noticed that this is one of the programs that we offer in our school system that many people are not aware that we offer. So we thought it was important to share some of this information so that our community is aware of our CTE programming. So.
A career and technical-based education will help your students to be more than just an average student. At KCPS, we believe that a career and technical education can give your student what's needed to succeed for life. Technical skills, academic skills, and employability skills. In addition, career and technical education helps the students to see how what they're learning applies to the real world. Regardless of whether students are headed for college or the workforce, this type of education will help them prepare for the future. In fact, college-bound students can get job experiences to help them define their career plans, identify an appropriate course for study, and help pay for tuition. That's why KCPS uses a variety of programs to equip students with career experiences. Some of the programs are automotive and collision repair, construction technology, culinary arts, health science, automotive technology, Pathways to Energy program, emergency medical technician or EMT, project lead the way engineering, water management systems, barber, cosmetology, and manicure programs, digital media and animation, and much more. The ultimate goal of this real-world learning initiative is that every student will attain a market value asset before they even graduate from high school. These assets can include work and internship experiences, college credit, entrepreneurship experiences, or industry-recognized credentials. Just think of the benefits that your students will receive by gaining not only a solid foundation in academics, but also hands-on technical experience and know-how in a real-world learning environment.
Multimedia is a combination of artistic things, like we're doing animation, videography, photography, illustration, I really like it because if I want to be an animator, there are jobs in demand for animators.
Hello, I'm Jermaine Sims. I'm part of Culinary Arts. Here we do baking, cooking, and just a way to express yourself in a delicious manner, I guess you can say.
Hi, my name is Madeline Lerma. I'm a 12th grader at East High School. I come to Manual for my program as Auto Collision. And Auto Collision is learning how to do body work on vehicles and learning how to repair and rebuild. And also it's a good opportunity for future jobs and out of school. And it's a really good opportunity for others to learn new skills, social skills, and hand-on things.
I like that they offer different classes like culinary and multimedia because it gives you like a chance to taste what you want to do, like experience what you want to do. So I find it very fun and I like it here.
Coming here to Manual is just a grateful experience in how they allow us to come from our original school into Manual, and it's just an amazing thing that we can do. I come here to cook all the time, and I go back to school to do my regular day activities.
Things I started and learned in this program is using body filler on vehicles, knowing how to repair dents on vehicles, and painting and polishing vehicles. And also, we are going to start knowing how to weld in this program.
KCPS is providing students of all ages with the academic and technical skills, knowledge, and training necessary to succeed in future careers and become lifelong learners.
Let's get to work.
As we continue to plan and work hard for a great future in KCPS, we will continue to invest in providing exceptional learning experiences to all our students, offering a great variety and quality career and technical education, engaging students with hands-on learning and providing pathways to quality careers, shaping the future of Kansas City.
All right, so I'm glad we had an opportunity this evening to share some of the highlight around our CTE programming. And later this evening, we will be hearing from our CTE director as we review our college and career readiness programming across the school system. Before we jump into our two presentations this evening, the Blueprint 2030 and the college and career readiness, I would like to share a few celebrations and highlights that have taken place across our school system over the last couple weeks. We want to acknowledge our East High School boys soccer team. They are the Missouri State High School Athletics Association Class 3 District 8 champions. Their win on Saturday advanced them to the soccer semifinals for the first time. The team will play on Friday in Fenton, Missouri. Should they win, the team will then play for the state championship on Saturday. If not, then they will be playing on Saturday for the third or fourth place. On Sunday, they were named the Fox 4 Hy-Vee Team of the Week, and in preparation for their send-off, a celebratory parade will be held at the school Thursday, tomorrow, November 17th at 1:45. We're asking all of our district stakeholders, everyone who's a part of this community, to wear green on Friday in support of our East High boys soccer team. The central office will be providing spirit buses for fans to attend the Friday game. Also, we're providing spirit buses for student, staff, and families to ride down on Saturday. Math relays. Last Saturday, math relays occurred, and 3 of our KCPS students were awarded summer camp scholarships from KU School of Engineering. KCPS won a total of 37 medals in individual events, and we had 3 top scorers for the math relays. Two of those students, one was from Lincoln Middle, one was from Central High School, and one was from Lincoln College Preparatory Academy. Last night, we also had our secondary fine arts showcase at the at Paseo Academy for the Fine and Performing Arts. It was an amazing experience. I was there last evening, and it brought my heart so much joy to see our students playing their instruments and performing and just really expressing their love and their passion for music. Our students show their talents through their vocal and instrumental performances and their art displays. And you should have seen those art displays. They were amazing. The Elementary Fine Arts Showcase will be held tomorrow evening, 6:00 p.m. at Paseo. We invite you to come out to be a part of it and to see our amazing students. The Lincoln College Preparatory Academy had its first all-state cross-country finalist, Isaac Rivera, and the cross-country team is headed to nationals in Alabama on December 3rd. Also last week, 17 of our seniors from across the district were surprised with full ride scholarships to Avila University. We want to extend a special thanks to KC Scholars and to Avila President Dr. James Berkey for seeing the incredible potential in our students. Northeast High School on November 10th through 12th, their FBLA, that's Future Business Leaders of America. They attended the annual Fall Leadership Conference in Denver, Colorado. The FBLA members, with their advisor, attended the leadership workshop track to be empowered to lead, inspired to serve, lead for change, and become passionate, service-minded leaders for life. This wonderful experience provided our students with the tools that they need to lead their organizations and also to prepare them for upcoming competition in February. KCPS and many of our schools also participated in the city school fair last Saturday. As a reminder, the enrollment is open for all of our families or any families that will be new to KCPS. This includes our neighborhood and signature enrollment, and current KCPS families do not need to enroll. Please see our admissions website for additional information. Also, Garcia Elementary, they were recipients of the staff received a $20,000 shopping spree that was provided by Office Depot for the teachers and staff to purchase classroom supplies and materials. It was awesome. Awesome. And then finally, we have a Teacher Apartment Award. Holiday Montessori teacher Kevin Hogan was randomly chosen to win a free 2-year lease at 2 Light Luxury Apartments as a part of the Kansas City Power and Light District partnership with our KCPS Education Foundation. And so we want to congratulate all of our students, our staff, on these wonderful accomplishments.
And for the record, no, Mr. Hogan is not related to Nate Hogan.
No, Mr. Hogan is not related.
Nothing funny going on there.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. But. All right, so we are now ready to move on to our Blueprint 2030 update. I just want to start off by saying thank you for the community, parents, all who have been a part of these engagement sessions. Some of these sessions have been challenging, and sometimes it's hard to hear critique and feedback, but we appreciate it. We welcome it. Thank you for your passion. Thank you for speaking your truth. Thank you for showing up tonight. And so as we have stated before that we are listening to our community, this evening what we want to do is to share with everyone what that feedback looked like across our system with our students, with our staff, with our families and community. So at this time, our Chief Marketing and Communications Officer, Hope Soriano-McCrary, will share this information and data with you.
Good evening, and thank you very much. I want to share with you our timeline for our Blueprint 2030 engagement. It started off in 2019 in what would be phase 1. We assessed the following areas: human capital, staff recruitment, staff retention, and staff attendance. Inefficiencies, we assessed our central office and our school sites, and we did an educational assessment, where we looked at our signature schools, our secondary schools, our grade configurations, and our feeder systems. Yes, sir. Okay, I will. In phase 2, we've identified goals and priorities, and we held community outreach. To name a few, we had online surveys, staff lunches at every school site, gallery walks with the public, and the student summit. At that time, we had over 5,000 stakeholders that we were able to reach. In phase 3, MGT identified a variety of alternative scenarios. We engaged with the community in 4 community chats. We engaged with students during their student leaders in training conference. We had meetings with community organizations and leaders, and again, we had an online survey where we had over 1,700 respondents for a total of over 2,000 stakeholders to reach during that time. In our current phase, the proposed recommendations, a summary of our engagement, includes 12 community meetings, 38 staff lunches, and Q&A meetings, 7 student meetings, online survey, which is still ongoing, and thank you for the gentleman that said that we perhaps need to change the online survey or update it to include other languages, and we will look into that. We appreciate your commentary. Blueprint 2030, a Blueprint 2030 email address was created, and interpretation at community meetings and translated materials in 5 languages were available. To further break down the current phase engagement, I don't know if you can see that well on the screen, but in total attendance, we had 728 stakeholders, 445 were community members, 101 were parents, 93 were staff, and 30 participants were students. Some of the common themes that we heard during these engagements: there were questions regarding how schools were selected for closure or consolidation in the recommendation that was brought to us. Questions about a contingency plan if a bond does not pass. And excitement about the world languages expansion, arts expansion, and the course offerings we will be able to provide our students. Continued in phase four, our proposed recommendations. We had 38 staff meetings at the impacted schools, followed by lunch and a QA session. We had 909 staff members participate in those sessions. Some of the common themes that we heard: what PD will be provided to staff to implement the academic vision? Concerns regarding class sizes and available space in these buildings. And many were excited about the expanded offerings for our students. In continuation, we had student meetings. We had 7 in total, and we reached 137 students. Those schools included East High School, Southeast High, Central High in combination with Central Middle, Lincoln High and Lincoln Middle combined, KCVA, Anderson, and Paseo. Some of the common themes we heard from our students, and they were many, and they are such bright individuals. They had concerns about safety, discipline issues, and available space in buildings, overcrowding of their classrooms. They were concerned about the loss of their culture, their legacy, and their history. And they asked why signature schools were not included. But yet they were excited about the facility renovations that they could have. We also engaged our community that could not attend any of our public engagements. We created an online engagement at kcpublicschools.org/blueprint. That website was visited over 1,000 times since October 24th. We had a recorded version of our presentation in English and in Spanish. Our English version was visited 328 times, and our Spanish was viewed 21 times. Our meeting slides are available in English, Spanish, Burmese, Swahili, and Somali. We are also collecting feedback via the email address, blueprint2030@kcpublicschools.org, and we're always collecting feedback through our Let's Talk feature, of which we have not received any. Our Blueprint 2030 survey, 57% of our respondents were parents, 6% were students, 32% were staff. Community members rounded off at 9%. 1 or close to 2% would rather not say, and other were almost 6%. We had 50 respondents from the parent-teacher conference hours from 10 to 6 on October 28th. And some of the common themes that we're hearing or that we heard from the survey, they were excited about the facility renovations and more programs for students. But yet they were concerned about safety of the students during the consolidation and misplacement of students and families during transition. So for a quick summary, in phase 4, we had 179 students, 213 parents, 1,066 staff members, 470 community members, 1,137 views on our website, and 339 views to our presentations. The common themes were similar. They were excited about the facility renovations and the academic enhancements. There were concerns about school consolidations and the safety of students during those consolidations, and there were concerns about impacts on neighborhoods and families and students. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Thank you for that presentation. Questions from the board? Ms. Wolfsey.
It's not a question, it's just an observation, I will just be honest, just a teensy bit picky on my part, but I'm telling you so that maybe there's something we can do about it. With regards to online engagement on page 15 or slide 15, I know we referenced that we talk about Let's Talk, but we're getting 0 things through there. I just did a quick, because a lot of our families, I think, access our website via our mobile device. Mm-hmm. If you do that, and I'm using an iPhone, so I'm not sure what it looks like on any of the other devices, it is very, very hard to see. So I don't know if there's something we can do there to maybe alter how that presents, but I do think that would make a difference over time. Okay. I think it's pretty much missable.
Okay. We will look at the mobile capacity and we will look at the mobile compatibility on our Let's Talk, and we'll report back to you on that.
Ms. Ford.
Yeah, so I don't know if there were any goals or ideas in mind of how many folks we actually intended to engage throughout this process, but I think the 728 number to me is the one that strikes me as maybe one that's lower than I thought it would be. I think I expected maybe more given some of the energy around the recommendations, and particularly the parent number of 101, that's actually really, really low to me. And even the survey number of the 2 Spanish results that we got back, I think that's also very low. So I'm wanting just to know, I guess if there were any goals around what we hope to accomplish in terms of feedback, and are these numbers something that we're satisfied with in terms of feedback?
We're never satisfied because we always want the most feedback that we could possibly get, but we can use this as a baseline for any future engagements that we have moving forward.
And then also, I don't know if there's anything that can be shared in terms of just the recommendations and themes that we're starting to hear, how is that going to inform our kind of moving forward? I think that's a general question that folks have, and I don't know what we can share about that. Be more, Dr. Collier.
Yeah. I think as I was sharing earlier, I think it's important that we are hearing from the community, because I believe that, and I've said this before, that the only way we're going to be successful in this is that we move forward together. And so I definitely believe that engagement is going to be very important as we move forward, making sure that we're hearing from our community even as we continue to plan out what will happen. And so we as a team, we're still looking at all of this feedback, all of this data, to try to make some decisions around this that, one, honors what our community has said, what we've heard, and at the same time meet the needs of the school system. So once again, we are taking into consideration everything that we're hearing, all that we've gotten, and really trying to formulate a plan then that meets folks at a place where they can be satisfied with some of those decisions, but also we're meeting the needs of our school system.
Ms. Cortez.
So I want to start
my comments with an expression of gratitude to our community for coming out. Not just tonight, but for each of the community sessions. I've had the privilege of serving on this board for 3.5 years, and it's not until this process, this phase of this process, that we've really heard the community's voice. And we've tried to reach out. I think we need to continue to reach out to the community organizations who have engaged us in this phase in a different way. So I really, not only an expression of gratitude to the community, but to the KCPS team. You all worked tirelessly through the course of those 2 weeks, really 3 weeks, to connect with the community. We know there's more to do.
Yes.
One of the common themes in the sessions was a series of questions, and I think we promised to the community that we would provide answers to those questions. I know that there is a strategy. I think it would be valuable for us to share how we're going to share that information.
We continue to build out our FAQs. On our website. They are on our Blueprint 2030 website. And so as we get questions, as we get new questions, many times we get the same question in different forms. So we just tried to condense so that it's not too long and overwhelming for people. But we will continue to build out that FAQ so that everyone's questions are being answered. And I think we've broken them out by stakeholder as well.
Camila's behind you.
So as of today,
They can't hear you. You got to speak in the mic.
So as of today, we've updated all the questions that we've gotten from the community meetings. As we get answers, they're being posted. So right now, all the ones around, and we have them categorized by facilities and by topics. But as we get an answer from our KCPS teams, they're being updated. So if you go now, you can see some answers that you might not see before.
Yes, so just to make sure everybody heard that, there were many questions that were asked as we were engaging with the community. And so we kept a bank of those questions, and we have been answering those questions. They are posted to the website, so you can please go out and see what those answers are. We felt it was important to be very transparent and make it visible for everyone. If there are any additional questions or something we haven't answered, we're happy to do that, and we will also add that to the website. But all the questions that we've received thus far have been answered, and they're categorized on our Blueprint 2030 webpage.
Mr. Abarca.
Yeah, I have to do my best to try and chime in here without choking everywhere. So my apologies if you get coughs in between. Hope, I just have to say I commend you for picking up this mantle, because this was not your original work. You stepped into this role in recent months and have done a stellar job connecting everything you can to bolster what's been done and try and do better. So please, acknowledge that in front of the community that as a bilingual communications director here, you have a unique role that we were looking for in the selection of the next communications director. So have to acknowledge that. On top of that, within this process, we also consulted a bilingual consultant to help us better connect, because we were not seeing the trends that we wanted to see early on in connecting with our families. And whether it was the timing or the method of communication, we had constantly asked, not just myself, but several members of the board to figure out how to connect with folks. I echo my colleague, Ms. Cortez's thoughts here, in that it's always great to see a packed room. And I think the last time we saw it was when we had a student performance at one of our Blueprint 2030 meetings and really engage a bilingual audience. So I have to say, we've not always done our best or the best that we could do, but we are getting better at this, understanding that we have still some more ways to go. I guess mine is really a comment here about the importance of Blueprint 2030. I have been preaching Blueprint 2030's importance from the beginning, and I don't feel like it's always been 100% heard. And now here we are, and I think we have a moment of truth that we must decide what we're going to do. Do we sustain and potentially put ourselves in a situation where we're not giving every student what they deserve and possibly suffer a slower death? Even more schools will have to close in the future. Even harder decisions will have to be made. Or do we make the necessary decisions we have to come together as a community and figure out how to bolster and strengthen this district to make sure that we will last another 100 years? This isn't just about school buildings or people in the buildings, unfortunately. As much as I love you all in our buildings, we have to adjust and modify to make sure that our students get the best that they deserve. And right now, we cannot do that in a system where 20 other school systems operate competitively with us. It's something we must address as a community beyond just KCPS, calling on full accountability and equity across all systems, charter and public, to make sure that our kids get at minimum full accreditation in every grade, in every class, in every school. So I will leave it there. Thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you for you and your team for your efforts. I know we will continue to move forward with community engagement, but I wanted to say those things.
May I address, Mr. Abarca? I'm sorry. While I'm flattered, I do have to say that it was not me, because he addressed me. It was my team. They did it all. That heavy lift was on them, and so I think the accolades go to them.
Agreed. Ms. Buckner?
I know that we discussed some issues with language accessibility, and so I would like for you to just speak to some lessons that we've learned from this engagement, series, and then what we are going to be doing moving forward.
I think moving forward, we just need to be a little bit more careful, a little bit more sensitive. And just like the gentleman said, there was an oversight on our part because we do have the slides translated, but perhaps we just overlooked not thinking about the survey being that, having those options to translate the questions that we're asking in their language so that they too can feel included as if we want their feedback. And perhaps we made them feel excluded. And for that, I apologize.
Okay, so I'm hearing ensuring that we translate the surveys.
Sure.
I'm also wondering about the interpreters at.
We have interpreters at the sessions.
At
yes.
all of the sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
we have an interpreter this evening as well.
Okay, have we received any other feedback? Have we talked to Spanish-speaking families and other families? And from different languages to get their feedback on what would make it more accessible?
Yes, so we have all of our documents are translated into 5 different languages. It's the survey that's not accessible to them, and we will address that.
Ms. Cortez?
So I kind of on that topic, I think we've gotten some additional feedback, at least some of us on an individual level, about ways that we could I think de-densify. I don't think that's a word, but
I think I understand where
reduce the density of the materials that we're presenting
Yes.
because we use a lot of kind of inside baseball language, and I think the ability to. Here's the message that I think we hear loud and clear: whatever we thought we were sharing over the course of the past few years hasn't been heard the same way that we thought we were sharing it. So one of the other areas of feedback that I've certainly heard from folks who work in multilingual communities has to do with not just translation of our 54-page deck, but thinking about how we kind of more focus our communication of those key points in a way that doesn't get lost in all of the narrative.
I agree. Translation, word for word, doesn't land in the same way. So it should not be about translating the words or the document. It's about translating the message that we're trying to get across. And as a child of 2 immigrant families, I understand what that feels like, what that looks like, and I will do better to address that in the future.
So I think what Ms. Buckner was really looking for is how do you build a repeatable process into this as you go forward? So think about having a work plan. Before any communication ever goes out to the community, someone is monitoring to make sure that you've got every single language translated for that. Yeah. The message is clear and concise. And right, so before something goes out, somebody should be like, there's a quality assurance process where someone goes, have we translated this? Are we communicating it across the different channels in the communities? And I think having that built into our DNA is what it's going to take for us to not just sort of continue to do, make those same mistakes. I have a question. And I'm sorry, one of the things that's really frustrating for me is when we don't put numbers on slides. it's really difficult for me to direct you guys to where I'm looking, but there's, it's phase 4 proposed recommendations, community/parent chats. And Ms. Ford called out the 728 stakeholder number, but I'm a little confused and maybe I just need clarity. If I look at the chart on this slide, can you get to that slide for the audience as well?
We need to go back, right?
I think it may be that one. So you see in the graph or in the chart, you've got community, parents, staff, and students. But then if I go to slide 17, which is phase 4 engagement summary, if I add up students, parents, and community members there, I get a number of 862.
Did we miscalculate?
So I'm not sure what's the accurate number.
Okay. We can go back and look.
Well, I think what's on that last.
So that last slide is a summary of all the engagement. So the slide with the chart is just from our community chats. And so the slide that says the summary, we've added all the numbers from the previous slides.
Got turned off. Okay, no, that's good, thank you. So the 728 number still stands, I guess, in that regard. Okay, I think it doesn't look like we've got any additional questions from the board, Dr. Collier, so we can move on. Hope, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate that.
I appreciate the feedback.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to move on to the next presentation for the evening, our Policy Monitoring 1.2 College and Career Task Force. And so I'm going to hand things over now to Dr. Davis, our Interim Deputy Superintendent.
Good evening, Superintendent Collier, Board Chair Hogan, members of the board and audience. We are here this evening to provide an update on Policy 1.2, which is our college and career policy. Policy 1.2 states that all scholars will graduate college and career ready, empowered to choose their path to a successful career. This tenet is also expressed through our current KCPS mission statement, which states that all students will be prepared to succeed in college and career and life, and it's also a part of our strategic plan. In that all students will have a post-secondary plan to allow them to succeed after high school. So how will we do this? Throughout tonight's presentation, we will demonstrate how KCPS is building a college-going culture and career-ready culture in our system through early college and career exposure, as well as conveying the conviction that all students can succeed and will succeed in college and careers. As we look at our previous context, several years ago, we established the CCR Task Force to really provide oversight of our CCR expansion, and we do this through an equity and access lens. And so the task force uses data to identify inequities, to set measurable goals, to inform practice, as well as to demonstrate accountability. As we look at our KPIs, just some of the KPIs that we'll look at this evening is really the monitoring of the ICAP, the individual career and academic plan that students complete in the 8th grade, also our FAFSA completion, as well as where we are in relation to the expansion of our college and career pathways. Also, we are monitoring the market value assets, and you'll hear more about that throughout tonight's presentation, as well as enrollment and success in dual credit and other post-secondary courses, as well as growing out our partnerships for CCR. So next up, going to turn it over to Mr. Andrew. In fact, let me just introduce the task force to make it a little bit easier. So our task force is made up of about a dozen staff members here this evening with me. We have Mr. Andrew Urban, the post-secondary programming coordinator, Dr. Chris McNeil, Director of Career and Technical Education, as well as Ms. Joyce Wynn Hernandez, Manager of Student College Access and Success. And I'll turn it over to Mr. Urban.
Thank you, Dr. Davis, board members, Dr. Collier.
Thank you for your time and this opportunity to discuss advanced academics in Kansas City Public Schools. This first slide here is a breakdown of our advanced placement qualifying scores for the last 3 years. You can see that from school year 20 to school year 21, there was a 20% growth. And then from school year 21 to 22, there was an additional 28% growth. When you look at it in relationship to to ethnicity, it might seem like there's a bit of a disproportionate score with a larger representation of Hispanic students. This is largely accounted for by the successes for
Mr. Urban, I'm just going to pause for a moment. I'm going to ask if you are preparing to exit, if you can do that and have the conversation outside of the room so that we can continue the presentation. We thank everyone for being here this evening, and we look forward to returning back here for the December board meeting. But we want to go ahead and be able to dive into this next presentation. So we're going to pause just a moment to give those who are leaving an opportunity to do so. Thank you all so much for your presence this evening. Okay, Mr. Urban, I think we're ready to resume.
I guess they're not excited about AP as I am, so. Anyway, so like I was saying, it looks like there might be some discrepancies in terms of our student representation when you look at the demographics. However, a lot of this is accounted for by our student success, particularly with the AP Spanish tests. Overall, one of the things to consider is when we're looking at AP test scores, it's true we have seen significant gains. We had 78 qualifying scores last year. But the main thing really is about the student experience. So we know that several studies have shown that with just the experience of taking one test, students are over 60% more likely to graduate high school and over 30% more likely to graduate, to graduate college. AP exam registration actually closed last night, so that was what I was staying up super late for. And currently we have 732 tests on order. Last year we tested 351, so if we get 100% of students taking the test, we're looking at 109% growth there. And again, it's really about the student experiencing these tests and getting familiar with the rigors of college. This next slide shows a breakdown of our qualifying scores from last year. I'd like to highlight a couple areas, particularly world language, art, and English. Those are the 3 areas where we score the highest in. This last summer, the Missouri legislation enacted a bill that required any university in the state of Missouri to accept 3 or more for credit instantly. So that means any of our students who receive a qualifying score, if they were to stay in state for college, would receive credits for those. And I think this is particularly important when we're looking at our English scores, because historically, English 101 and 102, or English 110, 120, depending on how it breaks down, those are often used as gatekeeping courses. So if we're allowing our students to get these credits early and to participate in these courses, they're far more likely to then be successful in college, because those are ones that often, like along with algebra and communications, that trip up our students. So that we're seeing an increase in those targeted areas. This next slide is a breakdown of our dual credit program for the last 3 years. Last year we had a 74% increase of individual students participating in earning dual credit and a 50% increase of overall enrollment. And by that I mean we have some students who are taking multiple dual credit classes simultaneously. The other thing I think that's important to note too is as we move toward more dual credit opportunities, we're seeing a more equal distribution of our ethnic demographics. So compared to AP, this is a much more, it's more aligned to a true picture of our students in our district. And this is really made largely in part by the district covering the expenses of dual credit. So that's really what accounts for that large jump up from school year 20 and then onward. It increased participation and access for all of our students. And now we have dual credit offerings in nearly all of our schools. And this is especially important as well when we're considering the market value assets that Dr. McNeil is going to discuss where students are earning 9 college credits plus, because again, we know that when students enter college with those credits in hand, they're far more likely to be successful because they've already experienced a taste of what real college will be like. And lastly, I'd just like to show a brief slide on our IB program. We did see a slight reduction in participation last year, but at the same time, we did see an increase of students scoring a 4 or more on their tests. We also saw an increase of students earning their full IB diploma. So this is, as far as I have heard, this is the highest number we've ever had as a district. And thank you for your time. I'm going to hand it over to Dr. McNeil.
Thank you, Andrew. Dr. Collier, board, what an absolute pleasure it always is to speak before you. So I'll go ahead and see if I can work this clicker. Pass the test. All right, here we go. I'll go ahead and start off, and I won't make any assumptions about the market value assets. So I'll just kind of give a brief overview about what these market value assets is, and I'll just kind of go through the presentation. So there are 4 unique market value assets when we talk about these MVAs. The first one is our industry recognized credentials, also known as IRCs. And so all these are, the industry recognized credentials are just signals that students have a level of mastery in a certain area and work skills. The next one is obviously those 9 college credit hours. The next one, internship, client, and client projects. The internship, in order for it to qualify for an internship, it has to be at least 120 hours of meaningful work, 60 of which has to be on site. The next piece under that is the client project. Those client projects, it needs to be at least 24 hours, and they need to be able to solve a real problem. So the students will work with a client to solve a business problem. And then the final one, which is one of my favorite, is entrepreneurial experiences. And so the entrepreneurial experience is where a student looks at solving a market or a social problem. So think of a student who's interested and want to get more people of color to donate blood to really help the sickle cell anemia. And so they create a project, and so they do some marketing campaigns, do some education work with the American Red Cross, and host a number of different projects, blood drives around the city. So that's an entrepreneurial experience. With that, my market value assets, one I want to highlight is our industry recognized credential. We're really excited about the work that we're doing in this area. So if you see last year, or the year before, we're at 66 industry recognized credentials. And this past year, we were at 85, so we saw some significant growth there. This is just the overall just kind of breakdown of kind of the areas in which the students earn those industry recognized credentials. And so I went over those industry recognized credentials, but I want to give you some examples of what they are. So industry recognized credential could be students earning the CNA, EMT, meeting the qualifying scores for the Adobe suite. The other piece that you're probably not as familiar with are those stackable credentials. So those stackable credentials are those micro credentials that students over time, they earn a series of them, and it makes them a bit more marketable. And so we thought that adding these to students, giving them that competitive edge against their competitors when they enter into the industry. And so if you see there, some of the, slow it down. All right, some of the stackable credentials include OSHA 10, healthcare. You have ASC refrigerant and recycling. And you have basic life support. So those are some of the stackable credentials that we add on to the industry recognized credentials. And so we're really excited about that work. Also want to point out, so if you see these numbers here, and that's in kind of the light blue, stackable credentials, if we see this 4 up here, for example, for multimedia, it really accounts for 2. So we say 2 stackable credentials equals 1 IRC. And so that number of 4, it's really 8. So they earn 2 stackable credentials, and we count in as 1. If that makes sense. All right, this is another one we're really, really excited about. So as you know, Career and Tech Ed, the lifeblood of what we do every single day is really engaged in the business and industry. It really shapes our curriculum, helps us to make sure that we purchase the right kind of equipment that industry recognizes, and it also looks at our industry recognized credential. through the urgent in which it should be, that we wanted to create an opportunity for our partners to really engage with us in a very simplified way. And so we partnered with Camila Alvarez and Miss Megan Batchelor to create a very simple process. So it's a 4-step process. So step 1, you go straight to the home page. Step 2, you scroll down to the current Tech Ed piece. Number 3, you complete your interest form, and guess what? Step 4, you immediately get a notification to say we have received your request, and within 48 hours, you'll get a response from us. I think that's fantastic. We're really excited about that work there. All right, finishing up here, looking at just the overall timeline of the college and career pathways. And so if we look at SY23, we're really focusing on how can we get students in those 8th and 9th grade into those primer or foundational CTE classes to get them set up for that pathway work. Particularly, we're looking at how do we set up our master schedule in such a way that we do that and also make sure we get the course sequences together. The next, as we're looking at school year 24, it's all about how can we expand that and build capacity among our teachers. One of the things that we're really excited about, an example of that is that we partner with University Health to have a teacher externship program. And so we have some of our secondary teachers going over and learning about the healthcare industry, but also we have elementary schools as well, teachers as well. And then finally, because we're going to do this right and do it well, 25 and 26, that all of our high school students will be in a pathway, and ultimately that all of our students will graduate with at least one market value asset that we kind of talked about a bit earlier. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and pass this over to Ms. Joyce Wynn Hernandez. Thank you.
Good evening, board members, Dr. Collier. I want to talk about the future plans for our CCR team. First, let me begin by talking about the personal significance for me. As a child of refugees who came to the United States in the 70s, my father's first job was as a custodian. And it's noble work and it's necessary work, but it was going to be a challenge for him to support 7 children, 7 daughters to be exact. To feed and to clothe 7 girls, that's not cheap at all. So I know that he was able to improve our lives because he eventually learned enough skills to work at Ford Motor Company. So for the individual career and academic plan, you probably have seen that within our slides this evening. It is a process that begins at the 8th grade level, and it's essentially a vision board for our students. It is malleable. The students revisit it. It helps our staff keep track of our students as they continue with their coursework, select their coursework, choose different pathways, explore different careers, consider college credit bearing courses for high school and 2 years beyond after graduation. And so this essentially can serve as their roadmap. For the ICAP, I also kind of consider it as our students' version of KPIs. We talk about KPIs all the time that I'm about to add it to my husband's honey-do list. He has to finish painting all sorts of rooms by the end of 2022. So for our students, there's a measure, there's a timeline for them. And our CCR team will get to use Infinite Campus as well to document and monitor a variety of numbers to improve, grow pathways, and track our students' progress. Our future planning also allows us to build out our dual credit expansion. And this is going to lead more of our students to gain those MVAs. And I find that to be very meaningful, connected with vocations, and then also allows them to grow in their academic journey. Today, we also visited MCC and looked at the entire campus and learned about their different programs. We had about 30 staff that joined us, and I was looking forward to us becoming informed. I didn't realize how fun it was going to be. It was an adult field trip. That's what it was. It was a lot of fun, a lot of learning that was happening, accountable talk, but also a lot of giggling. So it was nice to bond with lots of different individuals from different buildings and to know that, we have a sense of community, that we're learning how to share these opportunities with our students. And we did. We learned about a menu of options for students who might be interested in obtaining a certificate in fewer than 6 months. In 2 years, what kind of associate's degree could they obtain? Or how can we use community college to make it an affordable option as students launch to a 4-year degree? When we're talking about future planning for our CCR goals, it's also important to consider our partners. You know, we talk a lot about relationships in education, but those relationships outside working with our students, those relationships that we need to consider include our community members, fellow staff, our colleagues, and other individuals who can kind of inform us about internships, about opportunities for our students when it comes to higher ed and classes that they can enroll. So as you can see, UMKC is another partner. And we are creating that process where it's streamlined, where it's shared within our community, and where we have clear steps to foster that relationship. And UMKC, as one of our partners this year, we have mentioned how students can take advantage of an opportunity to pursue classes to become a teacher, to help us improve that pipeline within our own community for the performing arts and pre-medicine. And we know that early exposure to college courses, the college application process, scholarships, enrichment experiences can increase success at the college level and completion of that college experience. As a team member on the equity team, we are always considering barriers. I think to a certain degree we have limited, improved opportunities for our students when it comes to the financial barriers. We offer so many free options for our students, and you can clearly see that they're taking advantage of it. But there are many bullets here that we presented tonight and in the past where our undocumented students are very limited in their options after they graduate, both at the state and federal level. Those policies prevent them from experiencing what our other students can. I also want to point out that our college access team is funded by ESSER funds, and that will end in school year 24. I'm very proud of my team, full of young professionals. I always say that if you want extraordinary students, you need to supply extraordinary staff. And we're able to provide so many things for our students in each of our high schools, so thank you for allowing us to do that. We're providing test prep options so they can take advantage of all those scholarships that are available. We are offering FAFSA and scholarship opportunities, support for our families and students. This year, this semester actually, each of our high schools have had 5 college visits at least. We've had A+ job shadow experiences. And so I view this as not just, we're trying to graduate our students, but we're trying to grow them in many ways. And not just grow numbers, right? We're really allowing our students to bloom. We're allowing them to develop roots in our community. And to bear fruit in the form of financial and personal success. And we hope that in the future, that they will sow stories of his success and return that favor and help our current students in KCPS. Thank you.
Thank you to the collective for that presentation. Questions from the board? Ms. Buckner?
So, thank you for that. I'm looking at the successes on page, I guess you don't have the page numbers, for the qualifying advanced placement scores. Oh, it's in the corner right here. Got it. It's hard to see. On slide 25, I'm just really disheartened by the math and science. And so I wonder what goals we have around this. What are we currently doing to ensure that especially our Black and Brown students have access to AP courses in particularly math and science?
Right, so with AP, math, and science, those are our 2 hardest areas to find teachers for. So what we've been doing for this year, we've been partnering with UMKC They have a math academy that they're working on. So it's in a pilot stage currently, only at East, though, where we use one of their instructors. He comes to campus, and then he's teaching dual credit courses. So for next year, what the plan is to offer 5 dual credit math courses through the Math Academy. Again, still using UMKC's instructors. So it frees up our teachers, and we don't have to use our FTEs, but it also gives our students those opportunities as well. In terms of science, we have expanded in those areas, but that's still one where we need, and this is my work, to work more on the foundational courses that we need to offer to get students to those levels so that they could be successful in it. And then we also do plan on incorporating more dual credit science, though. So math is going to be one of the first expansions, along with communications and English. And then the science will kind of follow after that, but that it wouldn't be immediately for next year.
Thank you. And just a note, I know that we have a lot of access to information. I could email you all and get this information. But what I think is important for these public meetings, we have to ensure the community has trust and they hear the narrative that we're moving in the right direction. I would just encourage you all to name for us, when we see data like this, here's some gaps here, here's a goal for next year, and so that we can really address this and really, so folks can understand we're moving in the right way, and we can say, hey, how are we doing on that goal to ensure that we have at least five Black students who are in AP biology.
Yes, thank you for that, and you're absolutely correct. And we do monitor our data in that way. So even though you saw through that previous slide that the number of students that have qualifying scores are increasing every year, when we begin to disaggregate that and break it down, not only by subgroup, but also in what schools are those scores coming from and in what subject areas, that data does inform our goals for the next year. And so we are seeing increases in it. It's not where we want it to be, but we can see those gradual increases over the last 4 years because of setting those smaller goals. I did want to add to the previous question around what are we doing to expand the pipeline of students who are going into AP, into the math or the science sections. And so I do want to share that Dr. Jackson and math coordinators in our curriculum department are working together for a calculus project that will launch this summer. And that will be for middle school students, so that we're developing a pipeline for future AP calculus students by start planting those seeds in middle school. Also, we recognize that we weren't tapping fully the potential benefits of AVID. And so we now have a fully dedicated full-time AVID coordinator where we're seeking to increase the number of students who are in AVID in our 8th and 9th grades so that they are really beginning to develop that mindset to take on more rigorous content. So that will also increase the number of students who are choosing to go into these advanced courses. And so we're laying a lot of that foundation also through our career exploration course at the 8th grade. And so as we continue to work on our goals, we believe that the investments that we're currently making will yield dividends in just several years.
Ms. Ford?
Yeah, building on the goals piece that I think was more specific to maybe AP, in the slide 23, it references CCR goals kind of overall. I think that would be helpful to know exactly what those goals are that you're referencing, just so we can kind of see that in the future. Also, more foundational, the board policy that speaks to all scholars graduating college and career ready. I'm very interested in learning or knowing if KCPS has defined what that means. How are we defining college and career readiness? Is it by achieving one of these MVAs, or is it some other measurement that we're using? That would also be helpful to maybe hear in the future, after this, actually, not in the future. And then I had another question, just wanting to be very clear. Is every school offering AP and dual credit opportunities, or are there some that are not being offered?
Okay, so it's a little complicated, but basically every school is offering dual credit but Central. And every school is offering AP but Lincoln, because Lincoln has IB, and they're pretty committed to that program.
So we have goals of every school offering AP and dual
yeah.
credit. I don't
so
know.
for next year, the goal is to have every school offering at least 3 dual credit courses.
Okay.
And then that would get them the MVA by having those opportunities. So.
Okay.
And is the reason for that being teacher?
Yeah, so with dual credit, one of the issues we often run into is that teachers need at least 18 grad hours in the content area. So if we have a teacher who might have a master's, that doesn't necessarily mean that she could teach a dual credit course if it's not in the content area. So it's also limited by what student requests for courses, the teacher availability, and then the schedule overall. So we thought we were going to have a dual credit course at Central, and then the teacher quit like 2 months into the year. So that was how we ended up without it being offered there this year.
That's good context, because that's alarming that Central didn't have it. So thank you for providing it.
And the final question that I had was more around parent involvement in the CCR planning. Like, is that something that we are considering or doing, involving in those 8th grade plans, and then also involving them in the pathways that students are selecting?
So the ICAP is a document that needs to be shared with parents, and parents are involved with that. I would also say that parent involvement occurs when we're doing the financial aid work. We share out that newsletter as well about scholarship opportunities and pre-college experiences throughout the year. So quite a few parents contact us via email or phone call, and then also our college access people in each of our buildings. They hold events, workshops, informational opportunities for the parents. Like KC Scholars will offer a scholarship here shortly, and so there will be informational meetings with parents as well.
Ms. Wolfsey.
My question is related to I know we're trying to increase, and so there are some challenges as far as the number of teachers, but how does it end that a student would end up in these? Is it that they're selecting to go in? It sounded a little bit like we're also building, going back a little bit to make sure we're building the content so that they have what they need in order to access the rigor at the higher levels. But is this a process by which students kind of elect themselves to take these courses? Do their teachers try to encourage them? How, do parents know enough about this so that they could ask about this and are a part of that process? So kind of all of that.
Yes, so it's multi-tiered in terms of, because there's no silver bullet, one strategy that we can use and just touch all families. So what we're doing is making sure that all of this information is, one, on our website. Two, we have some of our team members have gone to various SAC meetings to talk with to parents in person. We've also presented to our DAC around all of the programs that we offer through not only the ones that you heard here this evening, but also the Early College Academy and other programs underneath the CCR umbrella. And then we are sending information out to families via email so that we try to expand the number of families that are aware of all of the programs that we offer here in KCPS. And I just want to also, I know we're looking at where we are, but also want to just kind of bring into focus the trend data as well, and that we are expanding and increasing not only in enrollment but also in performance every year. And this is just a 3-year trend, but if we looked over a 5-year trend, you will see that number is increasing every single year, and we expect that it will increase at the end of this year for the report that's provided in the future. So we are working hard to provide growth. And to the question around goals and lessons learned, we'll put this into the deck. But in your notebooks listed underneath the superintendent's goals, you will find under quality indicator 0.2 our CCR goals listed there, and we'll make sure we put those in the in a future presentation as well.
Ms. Wolfsey.
So I have one follow-up question because I actually got asked this question today. Can you explain why Lincoln decided to not do AP and is only doing International Baccalaureate?
Yes, it was really because it was a strain on the master schedule. There were simply just not enough teachers to offer both of these pathways, so we needed to, obviously the IB pathway was not going to be the one to go away, and so trying to offer options for AP English or IB English, it would have been very costly to maintain that from a staffing standpoint.
Ms. Cortez.
So I do want to commend you, and I want to make sure that it's not seen as kind of a small piece of this. So many of these courses require foundational courses that you have to take in middle school to be able to really progress, particularly in math and science. So I'm very pleased to hear that maybe even in 7th grade we're talking with students, because I think we cannot emphasize to students and parents enough, and our teachers as well, that if you're not taking Algebra 1 in 8th grade, it's highly unlikely you're ever going to sit for the calculus, either AB or BC exam. So the way those space out is really critical. And I just want to make sure that I'm clear. If a student is in a dual credit course, they cannot or they do not sit for an AP exam in the same subject, correct?
So technically, a student could sit for an AP test, even if they're not in an AP class. And to your question before, Lincoln still does have students who, while they're not in AP classes, still do sit for AP exams. So this year, we ordered 298 for them. So it was the largest year for them. So I'm hoping for good results this year. But typically, our students who are in dual credit courses, no, they wouldn't sit for an AP exam, because by getting the credits through the dual credit route, they really don't need to double it up, because they'd be more or less doing the same. So we have had some that have done it in the past just because they wanted to test themselves, but normally they're satisfied with just receiving the credits through the dual credit route.
Okay. Oh, did you need to add something there, Dr. Davis?
Yes, I just wanted to share, since we're on this slide. So if you look at SY20 and you look at the number of students who were taking dual credit classes, that in that year, the cost of dual credit was on the families. And so even though we had students who were wanting and willing to participate, there were barriers to accessing that. Over the last couple of years, the district has paid for 100% of that tuition, and you can see that not only are more students enrolling, but it is increasing our number of students who are earning college credit. And then also through this newest legislation that Mr. Urban indicated, that inside the state of Missouri, and going back to these qualifying scores for AP, these scores will be exchanged for college credit if the student stays within the Missouri state higher education system. So what we have to do, in addition to letting families know that these courses exist, but also helping to understand that if your student earns a 3 or higher in 3 AP courses, that's 9 college credits that they don't have to pay for when they go to school. And if you sit for 3 AP classes and take another 2 dual credit classes, these are students who have 15 college credits, can graduate a semester early. And so we want to make sure that it's not only an academic decision, but also could be a financial benefit for our families. And so we are working hard to engage around those benefits as well.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. One quick thing that I would just say, and I think we've talked about this before, is one easy way to help the public and the board to understand some of these graphs better is just throw your goals in the chart, right? Just put your goal line in there, and then it's just easy. People go, oh, that's the goal. You made it. You missed it, right? So I think that's just an easy way to kind of beef up your slides a little bit that will just make sense, and then it's not buried in a document for someone to go read through a bunch of narrative and try to figure out what the goal is. So Dr. McNeil, will you please step up to the mic? No pressure. No, this, I would reference slide 31. Yeah. Did you know Dr. Davis knew I was going here. So I think this is great, right, to make it easy for people to go say, okay, I know now what the process is for me to express interest in becoming a CTE partner, but what next? Like, what happens once they get that email back? What's the process to get them to be a partner, to evaluate whether or not they're going to be a partner, and then to get them on a path to actually working with us and our kids?
That's a great question. Thank you for that. So it really is. First, they'll get that within 24, 48 hours, they'll get that phone call. And depending on whether they want to do job shadowing or they want to be a guest speaker or they want to have an internship site, then that's kind of what we build that out based on that. So we have a process depending on which one want to partner with us. So we just kind of work through that funnel. So we have a number of great, phenomenal people. We have a number of people here from our department. So whether it's the internship side of the house, we have Ms. Hester, who's going to kind of serve running that point on that end. If it's a job shadowing, then I'd go to one of our coordinators. And so we have Dr. Nesbitt here, who's one of our coordinators. And so we have a level of support depending on how they want to engage with us. And so we build out that process. And so some are a bit longer. So if I want to develop an internship, and I've never had it before, maybe I have a college. I'm familiar with a college internship. It's vastly different on the high school side. And so it's really building out and walk through those steps. And so, we just kind of work through that process.
And how big is the team that's providing that support, working with potential partners?
Yeah, we're lean. So it is five of us that will work directly with the community.
Okay. What is, or how, let me ask it a little bit differently. How can, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, so just heads up.
Thanks.
How can the district and this board support you better? For me, this is one of the most important things that we can do for our kids. And I've always felt like it was just kind of inching along, right? It's just moving and we're making progress, but it doesn't feel like it's fast enough. I mean, when I look at trying to get dual credit in every single school by 2026, I can't remember if it was every 8th grader or every school or whatever it was, I'm going, oh man, that's like an entire 4 years from now. So you're going to have an entire high school class that goes through without having access to that. I mean, what can the board, the district, et cetera, do to support not just beefing up the team if that's what makes sense, but accelerating how we get there?
Yeah, a couple different ways. One is definitely kind of that team. So we found some lessons that we learned when we were very graciously, one thing I will appreciate from the board and our leaders here is that we learned a lot about the internship process at the high school level through the work that we're doing over the summer, right? And so what we found is that in order we're going to increase our footprint, we got to have more boots on the ground to kind of develop that. So that's one in terms of that staff directly connected to these market value assets. The second thing is really around the work is what happens inside those schools. Right, and so those comprehensive high schools, this in that pathway development. As I kind of mentioned in those previous slides, the key thing in terms of building this out is how do we have these foundational courses at the 8th and 9th grade? And as we build these things out until we ultimately hit those capstones and have those market value assets as they get towards their graduation. So it is staffing directly for our department, but then also some additional staffing for the high school so we can build out those pathways, because as you can imagine, some of the schools are limited in terms of what we can offer. And then finally, it is really telling that message. I feel like career and tech ed and the work that we're doing, we're the best kept secret. Not as much anymore because we're getting out there and telling our story, and we're really excited about that story. But it's sharing the word out, and then it's just leveraging it and bringing and holding us accountable. That's another thing. And so that accountability around just how do we make it easy for our partners to engage with us. That's a simple, easy win. Let's not make it hard. Make it relatively easy, and let's be incredibly responsive and steward the relationships that we have. And so I'm a big proponent of that. If you honor and you steward the great relationships that you have, as you grow and you scale up, you continue to grow. So,
yep, I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, it looks like we don't have any other questions for tonight. Thank you, guys. Appreciate the presentation.
I have a question. I'm sorry.
Oh, I didn't see you there. Ms. Buckner?
I'm really concerned about your response about, us not having the teachers for these courses. especially when Blueprint 2030, we have academic vision for STEM and world language. So what is our plan to ensure that we stay true to our commitment in the academic vision if we don't have the teachers?
Yeah, so we have and I know our HR team is working hard on some alternative pathways, but we have traditionally had shortages in our math instructors, and then as it relates to dual credit, where staff have to have 18 hours in the content area, we have limited number of staff that have those credentials to work as an adjunct professor of sorts. And so through the partnership that Mr. Urban mentioned earlier, through the partnership with UMKC, where UMKC is actually coming in to teach that course. They are doing that currently at East, and that then gave greater access to students, even though we may not have an instructor with those credentials, and they're working now to build that out for our remaining high schools as well. Is that for next semester even? That's coming even as soon as semester 2 of this year. So where we may have some of our own limitations, through collaboration and partnership with our higher ed partners, we're now able to provide those highly qualified and credentialed staff to teach those higher level courses to expand access for our students.
So this is I just want to make sure I'm understanding the program or the partnership appropriately. Is this a pipeline, or I'm not quite understanding?
Okay, so the Math Academy uses UMKC's instructors, so they're hired by them. We onboard them, so they're also technically a KCPS employee, but we don't pay them. They go to our schools, they teach the courses because they have the credentials to do that. So that way, when we see the need for having a science instructor or a math instructor, but we don't have somebody on our staff who has those credentials, we could still offer those classes to those students. And I just met with the VP from Penn Valley, and we're in the very, very preliminary phases of talking about how we could use them as well. So that would then increase what courses we could then offer using UMKC and MCC's instructors. So, and I think that's going to be, at least in the short term, the easiest way of offering these classes using people who we know meet and are vetted through the universities, because we don't currently have enough instructors that have those 18 grad hours in the content area that they need to teach these courses.
Thank you. Is there a plan for middle school?
In terms
or is
of
this
dual
just
credit?
high school?
Oh.
No. I mean, I know we talked about just ensuring that we prepare our middle schoolers. So.
Well, I mean, that really is more through CIPD, but what I'm hoping we could do is use the curriculum from AP content and use the syllabus from different dual credit courses as kind of like the end point, and then build backwards, basically. Because what we need is something that math for middle school has an accelerated pipeline, right? So we see that 8th graders could take algebra, they move forward. With sciences, it's a little different, though. We have kind of a standard model, and what I'm hoping we could do is have something that's mirrored more towards specific AP courses, and it's reflected in their curriculum.
Okay, so is there a plan for that, or you are just like
it's
telling me like
ideas? It's a little outside
ideas?
of my department, so I
Okay,
don't want
I'm
to
sorry.
say like who, like, oh yeah, well, you know, they're going to go and do it. I don't want to, you know, speak for somebody who's and then hold them to it, but it was just what I'm thinking is like what that would be one of the steps toward having it where there's a more seamless pipeline to these AP courses.
Gotcha.
If I could just clarify, we do have the teachers at the middle school level. What we have to do is just increase the number of students who are taking the higher level math at an earlier age. And so whereas Lincoln traditionally has 8th graders taking Algebra 1, we do have more and more 8th graders, whether it's at our other middle schools, FLA, Central Middle, et cetera, where we have now more students every year taking Algebra 1 in 8th grade, not waiting till they're freshmen. And now we have more students that are on a pre-calc or calculus track. And so we are building that pipeline. It's expanding every year.
Okay, I'm clear now. Thank you.
All right, thank you guys, appreciate it. We will move we will, we will move over to the board treasurer's report, and instead of Mr. Barker, our treasurer tonight, we're gonna have the awesome Miss Erin Thompson come up. She loves doing this, so.
Thanks, Miss Thompson. I'm sorry I can't talk.
That's okay. Good evening, everyone. Our total, we're 4 months into our budget. Our total budget is $332,663,581. We've collected so far $24.4 million in revenue, and we've expended $68.2 million. So we're over by $43.8 million, and that's when our reserves come into handy for us. We live off our reserves until December. Our local revenues consist of our current taxes. We got payment in lieu of taxes this month. So we've collected year-to-date $8.9 million in local revenue. Here you see our state revenue. We got our transportation, that additional revenue. We got 3.9 this month. And so we got a total of $4.7 million in state revenue. Our federal revenue is our highest revenue here. We've received our reimbursements from our title and ESSER of $7.4 million you see there. So for this year-to-date for revenue, for federal, we've received $10.8 million. So there's our $24.4 million that we've received in our revenue. This is, of course, is our pie chart showing that most of our revenue comes from local taxes. Expenditures. Since we're 4 months into our budget, we should be at 33% obligated. You see here for our salaries, we're at 22%, which means we have vacancies. The same follows with our fringe benefits. Our purchase services, our total for our purchase, we're at 19.7%, so we're under budget for our purchase services. One good news here, we are at budget for general supplies for teachers. They're buying their classroom supplies. We're at 33%. The total for general supplies is 31.6%. Our capital outlay, we've spent a total of $2.4 million. And for our debt services on our bonds, we've spent 1.4. So there's the 68 million that we've spent in expenditures and showing the 43 million that we're over. This is our pie chart on our expenditures, showing that most of our expenditures are on salaries. We have 97.4 million invested. Any questions?
Questions from the board? Thank you, Ms. Thompson. Ms. Wolfsey.
We've been doing a lot of talk in Blueprint 2030 about buildings and maintenance. When you go to slide, what is that, 49? Or in my thing, it's 49. So it is the, oh, no, wrong one. 50, capital outlay.
Let me see, which way am I going?
50, yep.
Just going backwards. Okay, let's talk about capital
Can you
outlay.
reset the slideshow? Thank you.
There we go. Oh, wait.
It went all the way back.
Yeah, it's almost to the end.
Okay, what's your question?
Sorry. So my question is, it's all right. Don't go too fast or you'll go past it again. So under capital outlay, Ms. Thompson,
Yes.
our subtotal for that line item is 32 million for the year.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. I mean, I think I do know, but I think more for the public's understanding. So in most school districts, are those dollars coming out of a bond type of fund of revenue?
Yes. In most school districts, they have GO bonds that they've passed for capital projects improvement. We're using our operating levy to pay for our capital projects.
for the public's general knowledge, when we have to use our operating levy dollars, those dollars are dollars that could be going to the classroom if we had a general obligation bond to be able to pay these capital outlay costs. Am I understanding that correctly?
You're understanding that correctly.
So again, just to kind of oversimplify, that's $32 million out of this year's budget that we had for this particular line item that we're having to, because we do not have a levy passed since 1967, we have to use our classroom dollars to cover those expenses, correct?
Yes, we have to use our operating tax levy to pay for capital.
And one thing I did have a question about there was, are some of these particular line items actually being funded by ESSER dollars and not our operational levy, or is it all our operational levy?
No, some of are funded by ESSER.
Okay.
About 20 million that we have set aside for HVAC and air quality for ESSER.
So in a typical year, this would maybe not be as high?
It'd be half.
Half, got it. Thank you, that's very helpful. Appreciate that.
Ms. Cortez.
So, kind of to follow on Ms. Wolfsey's comment, this is not really a question, this is a statement, but it relates to the presentation you just made. We hear a lot of conversation about reserves and why are our reserves so high? I would encourage the public to look at that line on the very first slide. It shows what happens to the reserves as we spend until property taxes are paid. I believe it shows 43 million in the general fund.
Yes. 43,843,253.
And that's as of the end of October.
Yes.
So that means that number will continue to be spent down until property taxes are paid in Jackson County. Not only are they paid to the county, but then the county pays them to the school district. So much as we would like to spend down aggressively, that is not an option. We have to maintain adequate reserves so that if tax payments are even 2 weeks late, we have the ability to continue to fund the school's operations, the school district's operations, pay salaries, meet all of our obligations. So if you look at our fund balance in our audit at the end of the fiscal year, it looks very large. And that is deceiving because those funds have to be used throughout the entire year. It has to get us to essentially to mid to late December before we start to see new revenues. So I would just encourage folks to kind of invest themselves in understanding that issue because things may seem simpler than they actually are.
Okay, I have one, actually not a question, a comment. So really good to see that on the general supplies line item that we're at budget. I know Mr. Abarca has done a really good job of sort of saying, look, there's this perceived or maybe real, I'm not sure, barrier for teachers to be able to have access to the dollars they need to go buy the supplies for the classrooms. And so at budget to me is an indication that they're doing just that, right? They're making a request. Maybe there aren't any barriers anymore. Maybe it was perceived only to begin with, but the fact that they're feeling comfortable with getting those dollars spent for their classrooms, I think that's really, really good. So I was pleased to see that number. With that being said, thank you, Ms. Thompson. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, we'll move on to the ad hoc committee report. And who wants to start? I'll start with you, Ms. Wilsey, on government relations.
Mine will be short tonight. I want to make sure everybody is aware that we are hosting a school board school this Saturday, had to think about it, from 9 until 1. We will, if you are interested in attending, you just need to send a note to our wonderful board secretary, June Kochmeyer, and I'll go slow. It's JKOLKMEIER at kcpublicschools.org. I think they can call you as well, 816-418-7621. And at School Board School, we'll do a quick overview of the landscape in Kansas City. from an ed perspective, then also from a school finance perspective. And we'll talk a little bit about Blueprint 2030 so that you're very up to date. Then we'll also cover the roles, responsibilities, and policy governance, which is the type of governance that we use. That will be done by Missouri School Boards Association. And then we will cover the campaign, if you will, 101, and the rules and regulations for filing. And then at the very end, we'll do a quick Q&A with some former and current board members. So I would encourage anybody that you may want to run coming up in April, or if you're thinking about in 2 more years after that, it's a good time to be able to check out what's involved in running for school board and what's involved in being on the school board. So the other thing I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of is December 2nd is our legislative breakfast that we host annually. And those invitations should go out, I think, tonight or tomorrow morning. And one more plug for, it's almost time for the legislature to start again in January. And so you'll want to make sure you're getting updates from Kansas City Public Schools. And the way to do that is to send a note to legislativealerts@kcpublicschools.org. And as things start moving through Jefferson City, we will keep you informed.
Thank you, Ms. Wolfsey. And on the school board school piece, I would just say, please come out for that. The pay is awesome for school boards, so it's a really attractive job. Ms. Cortez, we'll move over to you for an update on Finance Committee.
So I feel like after hearing presentations about advanced math and calculus, what I discovered after taking advanced math in high school and college was that I'm an arithmetician. Not a mathematician, big difference, which qualifies me to be on the Finance Committee. So our Finance Committee met last week, and what I'm pleased to report is that we appear to be solidly on schedule for presentation of all of the audit components to the board at the December board meeting. We know that that's always a push for our outside professionals as well as Ms. Thompson and her team. But based on the update that we received, I think there's a high degree of confidence that we will receive those in a timely way and have the privilege of hearing from our outside professionals at the December meeting. So thank you, Ms. Thompson, for keeping that on track.
Thank you, Ms. Cortez, and we'll wrap up our committee reports with Ms. Ford. Superintendent Search Committee.
Yes, good evening, everyone. As we've shared before in previous updates, the board has committed to doing a national search for our superintendent and has contracted with JG Consulting to assist us in that search. Last week, the board was able to meet in person with JG Consulting for the first time to kick off the search process. After that meeting, we've since finalized some key dates and mapped out what the search process is going to look like. We will be sharing that process very soon on the website that we've been putting all of our superintendent search updates on. Community engagement for the search process will take place between now and December 15th. JG Consulting, on behalf of the board, will soon begin reaching out to various stakeholder groups, and they will also be hosting approximately 4 community town halls to get feedback from the community. And there will also be a survey that is still being finalized and will be translated into the 5 highest languages in the district, and will also be made available on the website and in other methods as well. And that will be another way that we are planning to gather feedback. Our committee and our board wanted to name that we realize that there's been a lot of community engagement for the Blueprint 2030 process, and we understand that we are continuing to engage you all for the superintendent search process as well. But know that our board is prioritizing feedback from a variety of different stakeholders in this search process, and we just thank you all in advance for continuing to engage with us so that that we can have as many different touch points and perspectives as possible to help us shape the candidate profile for our next superintendent. Reminding you again of that website where all of the updates are. It's www.kcpublicsschools.org/SUPT-SEARCH.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. Appreciate it. All right, to round out the Board of Directors report, I'll turn the mic over to Ms. Buckner for board member voice. And for those of you who, we don't do this a ton, it's just really based on a board member's desire to say something that's off topic and really to just provide feedback to the board or the district or otherwise. And so it's not so much of a conversation, it's really more about the board member just talking about the thing that's important to them at that moment in time. And so Ms. Buckner, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So I've been really grappling with how to say this because I know how hard administration is working, how hard our teachers are working with all the things happening right now. But I remember when we started engaging in the conversation around culturally responsive teaching, and I shared one of my worries is that it would become a buzzword, and I feared that we would use this term so broadly and so frequently that we really didn't see it manifest in meaningful ways in our district. With that being said, in our last couple of board meetings ago, I asked specifically for, my question was, how will we know that we are a culturally responsive district? And the response that I received, in short, was not adequate, for lack of a better term. What I received was a response that gave me the definition of culturally responsive. A article was attached. And specifically said that culturally responsive and sustaining is not something that a district is or isn't, it's something that a district does and continues to do. While I agree with that, I'm also thinking about the critical analysis of culturally responsive teaching, and in order for this to be an initiative that our district engages in, we have to ensure that our analysis is so intentional that we can immediately say, this is what we're doing specifically, and this is where we're going. And the response that I received did not reflect that. This is a part, in my opinion, a part of a much bigger issue. I think about, and if I back up and talk about why this is so important to me at this particular moment, we have a disproportionate number of white teachers that serve Black and brown children. So we have to be intentional about being culturally responsive. And this response doesn't reflect that we truly understand like what the intentionality that it takes to be a culturally responsive district, right? In our actions and in our policies. While the article does lay out some specific things that can be done, I want to know what we're doing currently and what we are going to do to be better, right? If I do a simple Google search, there were culturally responsive rubrics, right? Just like trauma-informed, we have a trajectory of, we say, hey, this school is on its way to be trauma-informed, or this school is emerging. I'm not sure of the particular language, but that's what I'm looking for. And so in this response, I saw that we are engaging in a curriculum audit, but a curriculum audit is a very, very small piece to being culturally responsive. We can absolutely have representation in our curriculum with Black, when I say representation, I mean faces of Black and brown children, but they don't tell the stories of Black and brown children. While I'm confident that the curriculum audit may bring those things to light, I'm also thinking about teaching and learning. I'm thinking about students who don't see teachers like them in classrooms and the intentional moves that need to happen for those students from our teachers in their environment. So I would like to see a strategic plan. I would like to see some goals. I would like to see a rubric. I almost feel like this was a play on semantics because I didn't ask the right question. And I think this plays into a bigger cultural issue. I feel like in our district, first, I'll back up and also name that it is our responsibility as board members to ensure that we are providing answers to our constituents for questions that they ask. So a lot of times I bring questions to administration that are from constituents. So when they come back to me and I send them an article, that's not good enough, right? So I really want to encourage us. I'm thinking about the culture, how many times we kind of have this elitist type culture in administration and board culture that isn't tangible. Like the answers we provide isn't tangible to the folks sitting out there, right? So I want us to get better at that. I want us to be intentional with our language and with our responses.
Yeah, I want to give administration an opportunity to respond just real quick.
All right. Good evening. Board Member Buckner, did you receive the document that says quality indicators of a culture responsive district?
I may have, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
That document provided 6 pages of indicators of what a culturally responsive district looks like. And in the email, I stated we are doing more than 80% of these. So what I'd like to do is, just for the sake of transparency, I'd like to bring those indicators to the public so everyone can see the response. And if we're saying here are probably close to 100 behaviors and strategies that a district that is striving to be culturally responsive should do and we should see, and we say we're doing more than 80% of these, and if you look through that, anyone would say, if anyone in our metro is achieving, if there is such a standard as arriving at culture responsive, we are the example of striving for that. So in the response, when it says that it's not something a district is or isn't, it's acknowledging that a district never quite arrives at being culture responsive and now we're finished. It's because we have to continuously do this. It's ongoing as part of the school improvement process, constantly monitoring any disparities in outcomes, constantly monitoring our data. It's never, oh, I achieved it, we've arrived. That was what was meant, but in showing the 6 pages of indicators, to your point around the recruitment and retention of teachers of color, the socio-emotional wellness, we're doing, again, I'd like to just show it publicly so we can see that was in the response, and we as a school system are making great strides toward that.
Thank you. I just want to be clear. This was, I don't want to get into a back and forth with administration at all. So I think it might be a little bit inappropriate to do this right here. So I want to say that. The second thing is, my question specifically is, what are we doing? That was what that whole thing was, what specifically are we doing and where do we need to improve? That's my point. I don't want to get into a back and forth, and I think it may be appropriate now to stop this here. Absolutely, we need to do that publicly, and I'm asking, the question that I asked should have been made public in the first place.
Dr. Collier, I just let our interim superintendent make some quick remarks, and then I think we'll land there.
I was just going to add, you were mentioning a rubric, and we're actually going to be going through a culturally responsive rubric with principals tomorrow at principals meeting, so we can share that with you. If that wasn't shared in the original response, we can share that with you, and then we welcome you all to also, if you're able, to come over to see what that work looks like with the principals.
All right, Dr. Collier, we'll go into regular business items now.
Okay. All right, we have three regular business items this evening that we're bringing to the board, recommending for approval. The first is the master planning design fee. The administration recommends approval of the design planning fee for $280,000 to aid the district in determining the best approach for its upcoming facility improvement plans for various district sites.
All right, any questions? Oh, yeah, Ms. Ford.
Dr. Collier, is there more information that you can give specifically about this? Because speaking to the feedback that we typically receive, I've already received some questions about this, and so I wanted to see if there's any more insights that we can provide about it.
Yes, I'm going to have Mr. Weekly come up to talk about what this work actually is, so it's clear for everyone.
Yeah, we hired 2 construction management firms and 2 architectural firms to give us some kind of ideas and some cost estimates on various projects throughout the next 3 to 5 years, basically, or 1 to 5 years. We wanted 2 architects to get the best possible pricing, best possible design. Same with the construction management firms. With the ever-changing market that's happening right now in the construction industry, we really feel like two different approaches is what we really need: a small and medium-sized firm, or a large and medium-sized firm.
Are you also able then to speak to how this agreement fits into what's being recommended in terms of Blueprint 2030, and if we are getting ahead of ourselves approving this before the recommendation for Blueprint 2030?
Well, this would just prepare us for whatever is approved. As we discuss potential updates to our buildings, potential new constructions, this will just give us an idea of estimate costs of what those would be if any particular plan is approved.
Ms. Cortez.
Mr. Weekly, before you walk away, sorry. I was unclear from looking at the documents as proposed. I know that in the course of the Blueprint 2030 conversation, there's been quite a bit of back and forth about the difference between renovating an existing building and building a new building. I assume that these contracts will include components of both?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct. We wanted to see some costs about new construction because that gives us an idea about square footage cost over a period of time. Also, various timeframes, because the escalation is obviously something we need to understand as well. Escalation from what construction is now, what it will be in April of next year is going to increase again. Escalation in construction costs has skyrocketed in the last 2.5 to 3 years, unlike the industry has seen in probably 40 years. So we need to understand that about capital projects just in general, but let alone whatever projects are presented. We need to understand the escalation process and what that means to us in our future planning overall.
Ms. Buckner?
I'm concerned about this, voting on committing $280,000 before we vote on what the plan is moving forward. I do not believe that this instills trust from the community because it appears as if we are already moving in a direction by committing $280,000 to this planning.
One thing I would say is that I think it's important that we understand what I think the opposite, where we're actually going to be able to apply some of the cost to some of the questions that people have been asking. Like, what would it be? What would a new King Elementary cost? Well, what would that be like? So we need to, I think we're kind of helping answer some of the questions that we got from feedback from the public during some of the public meetings. I don't think it's direction. I think it's discovery of finding out what could it look like. What could CTE improvements look like at Manual or at other places? So I think we're trying to help bridge the gap between some of the information or some of the questions that people asked at those meetings. We need to understand the escalation and what it is right now and how to explain that to our public. This may cost $20 million this year, but in 2 years it might cost $35 million. And we need to be able to answer those questions for our public about any capital improvement projects. And I think this will give us a really good understanding of that. So I kind of see it as trying to bridge that gap between providing more information.
Mr. Abarca?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if this is for Dan or for Dr. Collier, but I see this in agreement with what Dan was talking about here. Is this is preparing us for better and more informed decisions as to what decisions we'll have to make when it comes to potential closures, consolidations. What I do want to ask, though, is how does this help prepare us for bond preparation? Because I see that as a real opportunity as well.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mr. Barker. I think it does give us some, there are some projects that we've actually talked about during some of the blueprint that will be part of this. And I think it gives us an understanding overall of the construction environment. You're going to hear that. We're going to hear that from all of the companies in my short conversations with them over the last couple of weeks in preparing. It was very clear that the market has changed dramatically, and we need to hear what those changes are to prepare us if we decide to do a bond down the road. We need to understand those so I can explain that to the board.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the master planning design fee with Hollison Miller, ACI Bolin, McCown, Gordon, and Universal Construction Company?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Oh, you get those, June? Mr. Abarca for the second? Okay, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Buckner? Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
No.
Ms. Wolfsey?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes, the motion passes. Dr. Collier?
Yes, our second item this evening is the Mark Early Head Start renewal. The administration recommends approval of the direct service provider agreement of federal funds awarded to Mid-America Regional Council and passed through KCPS for $348,560 to support the provision of early Head Start expansion services to children residing in the KCPS area. There are currently 16 infant and toddlers and their teen parents attending our school district.
Questions? Seeing none. All right, is there a motion to approve the direct service provider agreement between Mid-America Regional Council and Kansas City Public Schools for early Head Start services?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
June, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Wolfsey?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes, the motion passes. Dr. Collier?
All right, our final item this evening is Mark Head Start renewal. The administration recommends approval of the direct service provider agreement of federal funds awarded to Mid-America Regional Council and passed through KCPS for $5,160,426 for the purpose of providing full Head Start services to children and families in the Kansas City, Missouri area. There are 460 pre-K students at Richardson and Woodland Early Learning Community School locations.
Any questions? All right, is there a motion?
Well, you know I'm going to ask.
Oh, sorry, I didn't
Oh.
even see. Yep, Ms. Cortez.
There are 460 kids enrolled. How many seats what's our capacity in that program?
For the Head Start. I'm sitting here looking at this because I got this information earlier. Actually, so what I'm looking at is for the pre-K Head Start, there are, I think I'm going to need Christy to, because the data I have here for our neighborhood pre-K seats, so that's not for the Head Start at Richardson and Woodland. We would have to get that. I would have to get that information for you, the capacity. I don't know if I have it right now.
I mean, I'll follow up on my email, which is, I think it's critical that the board understand and the public understand what our capacity is, what our enrollment is relative to our capacity, and what the constraints are that are limiting our ability to maximize our pre-K seats.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I was trying to pull it up. So your question is the total capacity of pre-K seats? Oh, Head Start. Okay, so Head Start is 460 seats, and we have 395 enrolled currently. So we have 65 available seats. There are 25 seats that are processing, so students are in the process with Mark currently, and there are 133 students who are in the queue going through that whole process. So one of the things I think is important to understand with Head Start is that there will always be a kind of a churn rate there just because of the mobility of those students. So there will always be a little bit of a vacancy that we have, and then the time that it takes Mark to process those applications. So we'll always see a little bit of a delay in our Head Start seats.
Has the timing of that processing improved? I know that in the past, we've had issues with months and months of delay.
I don't know that I could give you an honest answer right now on that because I just started with pre-K this year, but I do know that they have been working really diligently on those mass intakes and really scheduling those a lot more strategically so that they can bring families in and really do large groups of families and get those coordinated a lot quicker. So I know there's a lot more strategic planning between Mark and the district, and really we're pushing them hard on getting those to happen a little bit more frequently for us.
I feel like this is a frequent question from Ms. Cortez. So can we get a 3 or 4 page document that sort of gives us everything you would, I mean, to the extent that it's meaningful, everything that we know about Head Start, capacity, current numbers, trends over the last 4 or 5 years, you know, something that helps us understand more deeply Head Start? Because I think the reason, and you jump in and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think the reason that there's such a push on this is that this is our pipeline for the future, right? And so the better we understand collectively and the community understands what's going on there and where there's barriers, the better we can kind of support each other through that. So if we could get something more specific, and I think, Dr. Collier, this is one of the items that you added into the monitoring or our overall calendar for the new year, because it was something that we had never really touched on. So I don't know where it sits on that calendar.
It's in the spring. It's later in the spring when we'll have that pre-K update.
So I don't know if that's too far out or if we want to get something before then.
I guess in the same way that we receive enrollment data about our K-12 enrollment, I think it's imperative that we receive consistent enrollment data about both our neighborhood and our Head Start pre-K seats. We all hear different things when we're out in the community. The thing I hear the most consistently is, are we effectively recruiting and filling the pre-K seats that we do have, since we were part of a team that prevented a funding mechanism for increasing pre-K seats, right? People, that drum is still being regularly beaten, and I can't really say that folks are wrong if we're not fully utilizing the seats we have, and as we've been adding small pieces, you know, and if there are barriers, is it that we can't recruit teachers, right? We know that there's a shortage of qualified early childhood teachers, but it is always very difficult to triangulate that data, and I think it needs to be a regular reporting piece.
Sure, we'll add that to our enrollment data. Did you want to share anything else around pre-K?
No, that's really easy for us to get for you and have on a regular basis. I know Julia monitors that and sends that to me regularly, so she can easily get that for us and have that. And I do know there has been some issues with staffing, and Head Start has different requirements that causes some delays for us, but our pre-K has, we've had a pretty good luck with that this year. It's been Head Start that we've had a little bit of issues with. But.
Help us help you. Okay, well, is there a motion, let me find it here. Motion to approve the direct service provider agreement between Mid-America Regional Council and Kansas City Public School for Head Start services.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
June, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Wolfsey?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes, the motion passes. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
June, will you please call the roll?
Sure. It's coming. Mr. Abarca?
Yes.
Ms. Buckner?
Yes.
Ms. Cortez?
Yes.
Ms. Ford?
Yes.
Ms. Wolfsey?
Yes.
Mr. Hogan?
Yes, the motion passes. All right, June, it's time to turn it over to you for a review of the action items from tonight.
Okay, so I have one that is, how do we define CTE or college and career readiness? Okay, that one is on there. And then I have the one on the Head Start data, capacity, current numbers, trends. Help us understand what is Head Start. Those are the only two that I have.
There was also a piece about goals for CCR that we asked about.
And June, was that just Head Start or also pre-K?
It would be both.
It'll be both.
All right. Well, thank you, June, for that. We appreciate it. Anything else from the board for the good of the order? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, guys.